Baseball's winter meetings take shape. Gary's new podcast studio is up and running, and Barry Bonds back in baseball. It's MLB This Week podcast. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to MLB This Week podcast. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
And Gary, you're back and looking great in your brand new studio.
Yeah, I'm finally in the new studio, Rich, and there's still some things to hang up and make it more homey, but for the most part, we're up and running, and the computers are here, and it's great to be out here, though. I've been a little under the weather this week, so but terrific being out in the new studio, and nice to have my own space.
Very cool. And we have the sleigh bells ringing in the background for the show.
I know we're having a special guest tonight.
Taking the Christmas season into full swing here on the show, and welcoming it in, of course, as we always do. And but the big news is, of course, your brand new studio there, looking really good, and hope it's the home of many great shows this year for you.
I'm sure it will be. And here's another little view if you're watching on video. Little bookcase there, nice door and everything. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we're real happy with it, and glad to have it done and to be in here and actually do some podcasting.
Yeah, no, when we went away a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about it, and it's funny how fast the time flies, and before you know it, we're all back on the show here, and you're back in your new studio. So best of luck with it.
Thank you very much. And we've had one holiday pass, and we're bearing down fast on another one.
Yes, we are. The holiday season just comes into full swing, whether you're ready or not. That's one of the things, just sort of like the baseball season. When it comes around, it ends around October, even November sometimes it'll move into recently. But it's a shorter off season now, it seems like. A lot more talk about hot stove action, where some of the free agents are going, and we had a lot of that talk over the past couple of days, and especially today, some more action happening.
Yeah, we've had some moves already, Rich, and some of the bigger names. Didn't hear anything today yet, though, so I'll let you report on that. But yeah, we have had 2 or 3 big free agent signings. David Price signs with the Boston Red Sox, and John Lackey is going to go with the Cubs, and Greinke's going to Arizona. So some of the big pitchers are off the board already. And, of course, the winter meetings start tomorrow officially until Thursday, and that's usually where a lot of action takes place.
Yeah, and actually they're getting a jump on everything. It's been reported that Chase Utley has signed a 1-year deal with the LA Dodgers to remain out there with the Dodgers. Just today, Ryan Madsen signed for 3 years with the Oakland A's for $22 million. It's a big contract for him. If you remember, he had some arm problems over the past couple of years. And let's see, another signing that, of course, we reported on the Greinke's and the Prices and people like that, but Jeff Shamarja signed a 5-year deal, $90 million. So a lot of money going out on the table, just crazy money, really.
Yeah, and where is it going to start? Now there's also a report that Darren O'Day, one of the big free agent pitchers out there, relief pitchers, I should say, it looks like he's going to stay with the Orioles, though nothing complete on that as of yet. But just scouring now the news to see. But as you say, Samardzija signs. There's a lot of things going on already, and it was slow to really to get started. It was a little slow in November, but now it's starting to pick up, and this week could be crazy. Then
Yeah.
Mike Pelfrey signed a 2-year deal with the Tigers. Tigers trying to load up on some pitching to get back into this pennant race thing. And interesting who's still out there, though. Johnny Cueto's still out there. And of course, the big name outfielders. Ben Zobrist still utility man. The infield is still out there. And Metzer seemed to be in a hunt for him. They're hot to sign him. So we'll see how he works out. And once he falls, I think the dominoes will really start to fall in. One interesting thing, and I hate to bring it back to the Mets all the time, but he is a big free agent out there, and that's Yoenis Cespedes, and you really don't hear a lot of anything about him. It's been very quiet, so I wonder if the market, if he's outpricing himself in the marketplace, and if so, does that mean the Mets might have an opportunity to re-sign him if his price drops? All of this we're going to find out, and should be an exciting week in Nashville with the meetings taking place there, Rich.
Yep, very exciting indeed. And you had to second guess yourself and look twice at Arizona for what they did. Of course, a lot of the talk for Greinke was between the Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. That's all you sort of heard, vying for his services. Then out of nowhere, sort of like a snake, the Diamondbacks crept in there and attacked Greinke and got him. So last year they were 79-83, Gary. Not exactly a team that was on the radar to even make the playoffs. So it kind of caught me off guard. Over the years you get some surprising signings and things like that. And I think that's got to rank up there with one of the bigger ones of the past few years.
Yeah, I have to agree. There were all sorts of rumors that he was going back to the Dodgers, that he, wasn't going to leave at all. And interestingly enough, though, there was reports that he wanted to stay in the National League because he likes to hit. And he did that. He accomplished both. He didn't stay with the Dodgers, but he did stay in the National League. He can still hit. And he went to Arizona, and it really was kind of a shocker when I heard it the other day. Because as you say, you figured he would have went to one of the bigger teams, San Francisco or LA, but Arizona's got a good young nucleus there, and he could be very big and important in turning that around. As you said, it was 79-83 last year, but they weren't in contention there for a while, and that was a tough division with the Dodgers and the Giants, and they managed to stay in there and really surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, and the Diamondbacks sort of have that in their repertoire. If you remember a few years ago, they signed Randy Johnson, and they also signed Curt Schilling many years ago as well. So they do have a background of picking up real star pitcher like the kind of guy that Greinke is, but they really showered him with money. It was no sooner a couple days after David Price's contract was dry, for around $30 to $31 million, I think he got per year. And here comes Greinke eclipsing that by a couple $1 million, making him the highest paid pitcher on the MLB stage. And that only opens the door for more money for the rest of them. They think if Greinke's getting this much and Price is getting this much, well, I must be worth more then, Yeah,
it's going to be accelerating at the time, but we'll see. Greinke is, tell you, he's very durable, and he's got a motion that's very repeatable and doesn't put a lot of strain on you. So that's why I think a lot of people figured it'd be easy to take a chance with Greinke. Cueto will have to see. He may be too high priced. His performance in the offseason wasn't great. Well, I shouldn't say that. He did have that one terrific game to close out the pennant. But in the World Series, it was vulnerable. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be I expect a lot of craziness going on in these winter meetings. Now, who knows? Nothing may happen, but I really think there's going to be a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's for sure. Of course, this year's winter meetings in Nashville. And what actually goes on during these baseball winter meetings? This is actually one of the biggest events of the off season. Of course, the earlier meeting with GMs we reported about just on our last show a couple weeks ago was pretty good. But I think this is the granddaddy of them all. So I researched a little bit here, letting our listeners know exactly what goes on during baseball's winter meetings. And actually what happens is the major and minor league executives, team scouts, and agents all get together, scurrying around a big, large property like it's being held this year at the Opryland Resort and Convention Center in Nashville. They get together, have trade show exhibitions. Job seekers are there. Plenty of baseball jobs going around. So if you're around the Nashville area, you might want to pop in there and see if you can snag yourself a baseball job. Of course, more than 500 media members are down there as well, reporting all the events as they happen down there, Gary. And next year it'll be held in Washington, D.C. 2016's winter meetings will be held there. But basically, it's a giant trade show for baseball. And of course, a lot of the vendors and things like that are trying to sell their products to baseball teams are down there. Just a whole ton of professional baseball activity from culminating rather with the Rule 5 draft that's going to take place on the last day of the convention, which is Thursday at 9 a.m. So a whole lot of stuff going on down there. We're getting a lot of news out of there with signings. And I think this is actually when baseball really gets most of its work done before spring training.
Yeah, they say that the GM meetings, they're feeling out the market and trying to see what everybody needs. And then, of course, we go into the free agent period. And then the winter meetings is where they meet with some of the free agents. And as you say, it's almost like baseball Super Bowl. This is their one chance to meet and greet everybody. And there's guys looking for jobs and not just, young guys either. There are ball players that go down there and trying to get jobs see if they can get a minor league contract or coaching job or something at whatever level. So it is an interesting week, and since the advent of MLB Network, we get to see more of it. And we're on top of it, I should say. And it's pretty interesting to see to hear the rumors and everything that goes crazy during that week. And of course, we always hope that stuff gets done. And it was very busy last year, if you remember, with San Diego and LA and Miami and all getting the mix, and Chicago White Sox as well. And it was at last year's meeting that the Cubs signed Lester, and that really kicked them off and kicked the rest of the signings and stuff last year. So it's the first couple of days may be a little quiet, and then by Tuesday evening, Wednesday, it may pick up. But we'll see how much work they've gotten done from the GM meetings until now.
Yes, indeed. It's a whole lot of events coming out of that event down there in Nashville, Tennessee. And I wanted to remind our listeners, we're listener sponsored here. So if you'd like to sponsor us, we'd appreciate that. Go on over to our webpage, and we'll have a link in our show notes at MLBThisWeek.com to Patreon.com. That's Patreon.com patreon.com/MLBThisWeek. And there you can see our links. You can subscribe to the show, help support it. Just a couple dollars a month is all we're asking for. And we're still waiting on our first sign up for this. So why don't you jump in there and be the first?
Yeah, there you go. Be the first one to be a patron of MLB This Week and help us out here.
Yeah, we do have different goals set up on the site. So as we reach them, we'll be giving shout outs to our various supporters and things like that. So we would appreciate that support from you. And we don't want to bring a bunch of ads in and bombard you with ads and things like that. We kind of like to do the show just as we're doing it now. We take one take on it. We don't really edit it. And a lot of podcasters edit their shows for a while, Gary, but not us. We go one and done, and that's the way we do it.
That's what you get.
So we're looking forward to more Hot Stove Talk. But, Gary, you have a story on opening day 2016. It's going to be quite an extravaganza.
Yeah, it is going to be rich. Opening day 2016 will feature a combined 7 national ESPN telecasts, 3 on Sunday, April the 3rd, and 4 on Monday, April the 4th. So we're really going to get our fill in the first 2 days of the season. Commissioner Rob Manfred announced this past week at the end, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, at the end of Major League Baseball's owners' meetings in Dallas, those 7 games will include participation of all 10 Cubs that played in the 2015 postseason. It starts with a televised triple-header on Sunday with the Cardinals playing the Pirates, and then that's at 1:05. Then at 4:05 is the Blue Jays at the Rays, and then a World Series rematch of Mets and Royals in the exclusive ESPN Sunday Night Baseball opener at 8:35 Eastern Time. The Monday slate of openers will feature an ESPN quadruple header. Astros at Yankees at 1, Mariners at Rangers at 4:05, Dodgers at Padres at 7:05, and Cubs at Angels at 10:05. So, Rich, we're going to get a lot of baseball action in right off the bat on opening day and the first 2 days of the season. Lots of action for you baseball junkies out there.
Yes, indeed. That's where it's going to happen on opening day. And, of course, isn't it great how every opening day and going into spring training, actually, everybody's on sort of an even level. Everybody's record is the same, 0-0. And it's just a hopeful time for most teams until they get a couple months into the season, of course. But and then it goes down. The real truth comes out on some of these teams. My Phillies being one of them last year, but spring training and opening day going up to there's no better time, of course, besides the World Series time in October. It's just a great time of year, and we're chugging along towards that. It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, it certainly will, and so far the winter, if you want to call it that, has been mild, and it wouldn't bother me if it stayed mild the entire season.
Yeah, that would be great. Loving this 60-degree temperature that we've had here in the Northeast, New Jersey, New York area, Pennsylvania. Almost a little like the South so far in this season, but we know that'll change soon.
As long as the snow stays away, we're fine.
Well, another thing they'll be talking about down there at the winter meetings is the Hall of Fame candidates. Of course, a bunch of new first ballot electees to consider, and among them, some great names of baseball. And I think we've got to talk about Ken Griffey being probably a shoo-in to get elected into the Hall of Fame on his first try. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he will be. He's got the numbers, 500 home runs, dominating player in his era, even though he didn't play on a winning team. But, you can't help that. I mean, that's not his fault. But he was dominant in his time. So I think he'll be a definite shoe-in. Trevor Hoffman, I don't know about. They tend to be somewhat. I don't know if the word is prejudice, but to relief pitchers, they don't put him in. He was a closer, most saves of all time. Billy Wagner is also up for that, a former Met, former Astro, former Philly as well. I do have a bone to pick with some of these people that are pushing Billy Wagner because I, I think if Billy Wagner gets in, then why isn't John Franco in? He has many more saves. He's the left-handed relief pitcher with the most saves in Major League Baseball history, and yet he's not even a consideration. So, was he any better than Wagner? I mean, was Wagner that much better than him? I don't know. The numbers aren't there. Franco's got more innings pitched, more saves, more games. So in that matter, but it's going to open up for some of the other players that were close last year, and I think Mike Piazza gets in this year. I believe 69% of the vote last year. He needs to get to 75. I think he will do it this year. Jeff Bagwell, can he make up the difference? You know, these are all talked about. Of course, they've been on a ballot before, Bagwell and Piazza. But of the newcomers, I think, as you said, Rich, Griffey's a shoo-in.
Yeah, you got Kurt Schilling right underneath Reigns. Of course, the steroids gang are still hanging around. Years on the ballot for them will be the fourth year so far for Clemens, Bonds, people like that. The fourth time they may be passed up for this. And of course, we have our Barry Bonds story coming up for you a little later in the show. But some other sort of great borderline Hall of Famers on this list as well. Mike Mussina, his third year of eligibility. Jeff Kent, Fred McGriff, Larry Walker, of course, also on that list. And another guy, Gary Sheffield. He's got a pretty good record over the years. He's been in baseball before he retired for many years. So you got a lot of big names out there. And as you said, recently been seeing a lot of articles about Billy Wagner being considered. But as you said, Gary, you have some other pitchers that may be a little bit better than him. Not that he was bad at all, but maybe some other guys were just a little bit better than him that didn't make it either. So it's a tough way to make it into the Hall of Fame. But I think you're right. I think a couple people are going to get in this year. Piazza, Griffey, and maybe even a third. Maybe the Bagwell or Schilling might get in there. And very interesting how the voting may go this year.
Yeah, the Schilling, he's close, but I just don't know if he's liked enough. Sometimes it is a popularity contest, and he had his things going on, and you wonder if some of these writers are going to say, about that and not vote for that reason. But look, he's got decent enough numbers. You mentioned a couple other guys that are interesting. Mussina, of course, has terrific numbers, but really never was dominating. He wasn't a 20-game winner. I think he only won 20 games once or twice. Don't think he ever won a Cy Young award off the top of my head. So, they like to see a consistent amount of wins and being awarded the Cy Young as well as far as pitchers go. Don't know if Mussina falls into that category. Same kind of thing with Schilling. Though Schilling does have a couple of World Series rings and a World Series co-MVP, so that could help his case too. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. And I think the vote is in the vote's taking place. The results will be announced in January sometime.
Yes, indeed. So we'll have to check out how the votes come in, and of course, I wonder how many writers out there get their ballots and then don't fill them out right away. They're looking for the public opinion, so to speak, and see if that weighs into their decision. But as we were saying in our previous show as well, the voting has changed for this. The class has been reduced, the amount of people that are actually voting on this for the first year. So we're going to get a change in results just from that, with the Hall of Fame cutting out some of the members that used to be able to vote over the years. So it's going to be more reflective of a group of writers that are currently in the game, as opposed to some of those that were grandfathered in over the years and they just were always allowed to vote. So big change on that. And we'll have to see what happens with it, who gets in, who doesn't. And there's always big discussion after the results are announced. So we'll have to see what happens a few weeks from now after the big holiday and after New Year's Day. They'll probably announce it within the first week or so into January.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date. I was just looking on a calendar, but didn't see it offhand. But it's during January some sort of time. So looking forward to that.
And as we were saying about on our last podcast before we took our little Thanksgiving holiday break time, we had meetings, and more meetings. And Gary, you have a little story about the owners' meetings results from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there's a couple of results from the meeting. MLB will allow fans to stream games in market now. The catches are that only Fox and MLB have reached an agreement. Now you must have an authenticated login, to stream the games. The Blue Jays allow in-market streaming through Rogers Communication, but considering that they own the team, that makes it a tad easier. Regardless of whatever the issues are, this is a big deal for baseball, and the teams that will, in effect, be doing this are the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Atlanta Braves, Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, LA Angels, Miami Marlins, Milwaukee Brewers, Minnesota Twins, the Yankees, the Padres, the Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Texas Rangers. And left off that list, Rich, is our two teams, the Phillies and the Mets. But I think it's going to, now that they've started the ball rolling for in-market streaming, I think it's going to be something that happens shortly. And they got half the league is on board. So I think pretty soon we're going to see that in-market streaming becoming a reality.
Right. And we have to say that you still have to have a cable TV subscription for this in-market streaming. So it's not a good deal for people that have eliminated their televisions from their homes that hope to catch on to this, because it all hinges through you having an active television subscription in your home, from what I'm reading. So it's just really a matter of you being able to watch what you're already paying for through the television, and being able to watch it on your PC or your tablet or wherever you happen to be. But so they are making a little strides in that. It'd be interesting to see if they go all the way with this and allow a lot of the people that are do not have televisions in their homes anymore. They just opt for the internet and seek out their entertainment that way. Somewhere down the road, I think this is inevitable that baseball is going to have to allow this, because across the country, that's one of the biggest things that are happening within homes. People are dropping their television subscriptions, just going with the cable internet and probably a phone connection of some sort. In many respects, they're using their cell phones even, not even taking the cell phones from the cable companies or phone offerings that they offer. So interesting that baseball is keeping up with the times here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. We'll be able to watch the game at a game on your phone or something. But you also discussed, Rich, something that we've discussed in the past, and that's more netting to protect the fans from foul balls. Specifics won't be announced until next year. The reason for the delay really is because it's difficult to create a one-size-fits-all policy for every ballpark. Every ballpark's different. So with the dimensions and whatever. So it's not going to be exactly mandated. I think it's going to be highly recommended. There are a couple of ballparks already that are going to do it. And we'll see which ones opt out to do it and which ones decline to do it in the beginning. Eventually, I would imagine that everybody will find a way to add more netting to make things a little safer for the people at the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's going to look a little strange, especially when the people from first to third are paying the most money to see the game. Now they're going to have to look through a screen to see it if they elect to put those up in certain markets. Just, when I'm behind the screen watching a game, I don't enjoy it as much as if I'm down the line and have a unadulterated view through it for some reason. Now, if I'm right behind an area that really needs protection, of course, it's great. But if I'm down the first base line, equivalent to the dugout areas or things like that, especially halfway up the rows or better, I don't want to see a bunch of netting in front of me. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but be interesting to see what 2016 looks like on each baseball field as well and in the crowd.
Well, I've been to a minor league park where they've had it extended, and it's very distracting. But then again, it depends upon where you sit. I mean, if you're up closer to it, you can almost phase it out of your mind because you can look through the slots in the netting. It's not really tight woven netting. It does have some give. There's some viewing area there. But if you're further away, your eye tends to start focusing on the netting, and it really is confusing with the ball, with the flight of the ball, the pitch coming in, and everything. But they think they're covered by saying you have to protect yourself. We'll have to see if somebody brings a lawsuit. Then I don't see how they could, though, because it is stated on every ticket that you buy that I forget the wording now, but it's to the extent stay alert for batted balls and that sort of thing. So I don't know, Rich. It's just it's an issue that you want to say you're against, but then it almost makes you sound foolish because you're putting people in danger. But in this day and age, you know yourself, you go to a game, you see how many people are on phones or tablets or whatever instead of paying attention to the game, and that's where people get hurt.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you have to pay attention during the games, as we've been saying all along. And it's so easy to get distracted, especially with the tablets, as you were saying, Gary. You're sitting there trying to watch a game. And by the way, getting back to our previous story, the MLB.TV subscription, the one that I usually get during the year, that will not be affected with the home viewing of your home team. In other words, they will not offer that through MLB.TV. So you won't be able to see your Mets through MLB.TV at home in New York, in the New York area. I won't be able to see the Phillies because I live in the Phillies market on MLB.TV. This is only going to be for people with cable subscriptions at home to be able to watch streaming games, which they should be able to anyway, but for some reason they don't. So I just wanted to clear that up. The MLB.TV will remain the same. They will still block out your local in-market game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, getting back to the netting and all, we'll have to see if the benefits outweigh the distractions to the fans. Especially, they're paying the most money sitting from first to third in the lower levels at all the stadiums. So um, we'll have to see what happens with that. Of course, some nasty hits last year with fans. We saw those, and there was probably a lot more years ago, but for some reason now it always seems to make TV, and it gets blown out of proportion. But as you said, Gary, during those minor league games, I wouldn't sit in the first 5, 6 rows from first to third because you're so close to the action. That ball comes in there real fast down at the minor league stadiums.
Well, even if you're back, sometimes the ball comes flying out at you. But again, you just got to be alert, and they do the best that they can. But it is an outdoor ballpark. You don't want to be like hockey, I don't think, with his plexiglass all the way around. So you're looking through glass all the time. I don't know if there is a solution. I think I would just say the solution is to tell everybody, and they do this constantly. They make the announcements during the games. As I say, they're on everybody's ticket. You got to stay alert. And if you're sitting on the first base side, you got to be super alert when there's a right-handed hitter up. And if you're on a third base side, you got to be super alert when there's a left-handed hitter up, because they tend to go to the opposite way with a foul ball. So you just got to be alert all the time when there's action going on. When there's a downtime in between innings, that's when you check your phone and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, I don't know what else they can do other than they can put all the netting in the world, but, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to fall off a thing, and what do you do then? I mean, people have died falling over railings to get foul balls, trying to catch a foul ball. We've done a story on this show about that. You can't prevent some of this stuff, and just be alert, folks.
That's for sure. Well, we appreciate your comments to the show. If you want to subscribe to us, go to iTunes, go to Stitcher Radio. We're there. And, of course, our own website, MLBThisWeek.com. And we'd appreciate you if you subscribe to us on iTunes. Go ahead and leave us some feedback on it. Tell us what you think about the show. You can leave us a rating there. And, of course, we're also on YouTube. We're doing a video version of the show each time we record it here, so check us out. All the video versions you can find right on our website, MLBThisWeek.com. Moving on with our next story, Gary, some brand new uniforms taking place here for the holiday season to give you some more reasons to shop for your baseball goodies. Couple teams making some big changes with their uniforms. The San Diego Padres will be unveiling a couple new uniforms in 2016, one of which is a home white jersey. It's going to be a revision of their blue alternative jersey that they've worn in the past, but this one's going to have a yellow gold accent to the uniform. Padres, of course, hosting the All-Star game, so they're going to be hearkening back to their old days as well, with the brown and the gold uniform there, saying Padres across the chest. So going to be looking pretty cool, almost like a turn back the clock night uniform for them. But they're also going to introduce a new military type of uniform going forward. They had been using the camouflage there on certain games, usually the Sunday games there in San Diego. They're going to be giving it a blue base as well, giving a special extra wink to the Navy there, of course, who uses the blue, as opposed to the Marine base that is also out there in San Diego. So a little change for them. But the biggest change, Gary, is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. They just splashed out $200+ million on Zach Greinke, but they're going to go with 8 different setups, 8 different uniforms for the 2016 season. We're going to have 7 different hats, Gary. So how many times do you think these guys are going to screw up their uniforms on the field this year?
I saw that, Rich, and I was looking at some of the combinations, and I'm saying, wow, this is incredible. This is really, I don't know. It's really something else, and they're all over the board with colors. I mean, they've got the red or whatever Sidonia red. They brought in a purple throwback they're going to use, I think. It's just all over the place, and they're going to need a spreadsheet just to figure out what uniform they're wearing, what hat, and when. I think they've got 3 road uniforms, a darker gray, which was kind of sharp, the regular type of lighter gray, I believe, and they also got a colored jersey, either a black or a red one or something. I'm telling you, they look sharp. I'm not knocking the uniforms, but do you really need that many combinations in this day and age?
Yeah, 8 different uniforms, and as you said, 2 home white jerseys, one with an orange brownish combination, and then another one with a teal and brown combination. And of course, going back to the 90s, Arizona Diamondbacks, they have sort of a purple striped with a short sleeve purple shirt with like a teal A up in the corner of the uniform. They have 2 dark gray road jerseys, as you said, a red jersey, which can be worn occasionally, and then a brown with orange combination. And then they even have a Spanish jersey for 2016. So, yeah, it's going to be a nightmare for the cleaners and just for the players to keep up with what uniform is going to be worn on which game.
And they're gonna have a new different look with the I don't know how you describe it, the color block across the top, almost reminiscent of a football uniform, an old fashioned football uniform. I don't know how those are gonna play, but just looking at a picture over here, it's going to be worth tuning in just to see what the heck they're wearing.
Yeah, it's going to be the talk of the day, I'm sure, and I'm sure they're going to have their Twitter account every game tweet out probably their uniform of the day before the game. And yeah, we've seen it over the years, especially last year. Some players don't get the memo on what specific uniform they're wearing for that specific game. So it's going to be interesting to see if every player can do this right in 2016 for the Diamondbacks.
It certainly will. Excuse me, Rich. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see these diamond patterns that they're going to have on the pants. Just totally different, and I don't know what the purpose is behind having so many or different styles, but we'll see how they look at in action. And of course, the Padres. There's a team that just can't get a color scheme. It just doesn't seem. They just keep, they how they went from brown and gold in the old days to the blue and now they went blue and white. Now they're going to go blue and yellow. It's like a team without an identity, really, and it's really a shame because they probably would have been better off just sticking with those brown and yellow over the years.
That's for sure. So we'll have to check out the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2016 when the season starts. And Zach Greinke, I did some math on this already. We might see a matchup between Greinke and Arrieta within the first 8 days of the start of the season, 8 or 9 days, Gary. I did some research on the Diamondbacks, where they'll be. Their second series in 2016 is against the Cubs at home. So I think we're going to see some interesting matchups that first week from the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Certainly will. They're going to want to send a notice out to the Western Division and to the whole National League in general that they're here and they're ready to play for a playoff position.
That's for sure. So we're saving our biggest story probably for me in the past week or so that we've been off, Gary. Couple of weeks here. Barry Bonds back in the game, and you have the story.
Well, this was kind of another shocker, Rich, as you were talking about a week of shockers and some different types of stories. But yeah, it's been reported and made pretty much a fact now that the Miami Marlins, of all people, announced that Barry Bonds will be one of their coaches in this year. He is going to be their hitting coach, and it's official. And, Bonds, the career lead in home runs, a notorious figure in baseball steroid era, will be back in uniform. It will be every day. He says he realizes that he's going to have to be there every day, and it's the only way that it will help the players to see him there all the time. So he's going to be a full-time hitting coach, and going to be interesting. The season may start out as a circus for him, Rich, because it's going to be a lot of questions of him coming back, the whole PED stuff, and all of that. But look, McGuire was a hitting coach and has been doing pretty well at that and not have too many problems. And so we'll see how Barry Bonds does. Apparently, he had done some things with the Giants in spring training and got the bug, and he's back in baseball full time as a hitting coach.
Yeah, and of course, his overturned conviction last April, that didn't really make it in the news as much as his conviction did, but a court overturned his conviction of obstruction of justice. He was only convicted on one crime, so to speak, of obstructing justice, lying about a comment he made to Congress about his involvement in the baseball steroid scandal. And really, the difference between him and McGuire is, though, Gary, is he's never really publicly come out, admitted it, and said he was sorry for it. He still maintains that he didn't know what he was taking, quote unquote, which is obviously a lie. So in my eyes, yeah, he's going to have a hell of a road to conquer in 2016. He's going to have endless questions, endless fans in the stands still heckling him. The difference between him and McGuire is McGuire had a tearful apology. He went before the general public, told them what he did knowingly. He did what he did, and he was sorry for it. So that's the big difference between Bonds and a lot of these players. Even Rodriguez admitted it to a certain extent. So you still have the lone holdout there in Barry Bonds. Why he got away with what he got away with is amazing. Just the jury trial that took place, and it almost becomes like a circus, because the more money you have in something like that, the more they convolute everything and try to pull the wool over the jury's eyes, confuse them. The basic point of the fact was that, yeah, he abused steroids as a baseball player. There's no doubt about that. But somehow he wiggled off the hook. He's now back in baseball. Good for the game? I don't think so. If it was good for the game, he would have already been in the Hall of Fame. He's had questions to him about whether or not he's a Hall of Fame player, and he agrees that he is, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. So there's still a big asterisk next to his name, but he'll be traveling with the Marlins this year and part of their ball club. I guess he got this court case behind him now, and he feels that he should be accepted back into baseball.
Well, I think in a certain way, yeah, he didn't say that he took them, but he said he didn't know he was taking it. But I think the difference between him and a guy like Rodriguez was that Rodriguez denied it so long, and he sued baseball. He sued the Yankees. He was suing everybody at one point, and I think he got out. He didn't even go through a court case, but I think in Bond's defense, he said he didn't know he took it, but he didn't ever said that he didn't take it. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing. He didn't deny taking it. He said he just didn't know he took it. So maybe you could say that's a denial.
Exactly. And I would have to say that's an out and out lie as well, because these players know what's going into their body, but that's another.
Look at Henry Mejia. The guy took it and then gets reinstated, and he's there 10 days back in the major leagues, and they find he took it again. So I don't know. Is it a cultural thing with him? Maybe there was a ton of players this year from the Dominican Republic, pitchers, that was suspended by baseball because of taking a steroid, and they all took the same thing. Now, either they didn't know, either it's something in when they were training in their, drinks the trainers were giving them, or are they just all that stupid? I don't know what the answer is there. But I guess there is a way you could take somebody, if you're working with a trainer and he says, hey, look, drink this, it's good, or rub this cream on, it'll help you recover quicker. I don't know if you're into some of these athletes, you're just going to say, wow, this is going to help me. It's like, do you believe? And I understand that with the money that's involved, you should be checking everything. But, somebody flips you a thing and says, this is like a Ben Gay, only better. Hey, you rub it on and it makes you feel better. You say, wow, this stuff works good. I don't know. It's a crazy situation. I think they're going to have to resolve the Hall of Fame thing with these guys somehow. I think eventually you're going to have to let them in. I mean, I know there's a question about the home runs, but he still had to hit the ball. And how many guys that they've caught on steroids that were not good players, and the steroids didn't help them become better players? You still have to have a certain level of competence, even though you took the steroids.
Yeah, and I think what happens with this is they let a certain amount of years go by. Now it's been umpteen years since the occurrence of this. The stories haven't went away, but they sort of die off a little bit. So it sort of makes it okay after a certain amount of time. People start to feel, oh, well, yeah, they did that, but they did accomplish what they did. But going back I did some reading after learning Bonds was back in baseball. And, of course, Jason Giambi, which was associated with one of the trainers that actually administered most of these steroids to a lot of the players. They were traveling together with this Giambi and Greg Anderson through the All-Star game in Japan in 2002. And Anderson knew all about it. He even told Giambi that he would fail a drug test in the United States for a certain substance he was taking. And that's when he introduced him and both Bonds to this new substance and substances that were undetectable at the time. So no doubt in the mind that Bonds did violate the rules of baseball. No, I don't think the record should stand. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think they should be in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't vote for them. You just can't vote for somebody that takes an unfair advantage like that. And as you said, as far as Alex Rodriguez being the slimy type of person he is, I think Bonds is equally as slimy as Rodriguez in a different way. He's not as vocal as Alex Rodriguez, but he's certainly as evasive and, just that general slick suited type of person you wouldn't really trust. So Bonds back in baseball.
I think the difference there, Rich, is that as you say, they're both slimy, but Rodriguez comes off as like a used car salesman, and no offense to used car salesman, but you know the feelings that we have about used car salesmen, you know, the slick back hair, the shiny suit. If that's what Rodriguez comes out with, Bonds comes off as this surly, just not a nice guy type of persona, you know.
A threatening used car salesman. Buy this or else.
Yeah. But A-Rod comes up as this nicely groomed, nicely dressed, guy that just doesn't seem. And he might be he might be very sincere, but he just never seems to be sincere in anything he says or does. So I think that's the difference there. Bonds is surly and doesn't like the press, and Rodriguez tries to like the press and just comes off a little slimier.
And interesting that Don Mattingly has actually been the guy that brought those both players back into baseball. Of course, Mark McGwire with batting coach, and now that Mattingly is down in Miami, he hires Bonds as one of the hitting coaches. I understand the Miami Marlins will have 2 hitting coaches, and Barry Bonds will be one of them. So maybe his way of trying to introduce these guys back in the game. But as a fan, I'm not buying it. I don't have any more love for Barry Bonds as I did years ago when he broke the hearts of many that after we learned, hey, this is why he's batting so great. He's hitting 73 home runs. Yes, he had a natural talent for it, but it's just an unfair advantage that has to be explained in the fact that he probably wouldn't have been able to accomplish those feats if it wasn't for these chemicals. And that goes with Clemens as well. I feel the same way about him. All those guys, and as you said, it was hundreds of players, Gary, not just them, but they were the ones to take the greatest benefits, which is the high salaries that they made, the accolades that they made, and the adoration from all the fans, the younger fans in the country, older fans in the country, all their fans. I don't see how you can like somebody like that, that they broke their trust with you. Not that they're that bad of a person, but they cheated.
Well, Rich, I think what you're going to find, though, as we go on, is you're going to have different sports writers coming in. They're going to look at the records, and they're going to say, you know what, we never saw these guys play, but look at these numbers. He is the home run king. He did hit the home runs. Yeah, he did with the steroids, but we don't know what pitchers were taking steroids that got away with it. So I think baseball is going to have to come to some decision with that stuff. We don't know what other pitchers other than Clemens took it. And Andy Pettit admitted to taking some. It's just such a can of worms, and it almost goes back to the whole Pete Rose thing again. How can you keep the guy that got the most hits in the history out of the Hall of Fame? And I know the difference is gambling versus something that helps you play better, but I don't think there's any evidence that it does help you play better. It just helps you recover quicker and allows you to get back on the field. But I still think you have to have the talent to perform. And again, I bring up a lot of these guys that they have caught that were very mediocre, and we don't hear about them because they're mediocre. And but it'll work itself out, I guess, eventually, and we'll see whether it takes a veterans committee to get some of these guys in. But I think somewhere down the road, they're going to have to get into the Hall of Fame, or else people in the future will question then is this really a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and one more note about Bonds, just some of the stuff I was reading about him. Actually graduated with a degree in criminology out of Arizona State back in 1986. So very interesting how he made that full circle, became trouble himself. But Gary, it was a great show getting back to MLB this week. So far, I know you're under the weather. I appreciate you being able to join us today on this show, and great to be back, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show.
I hope so too, Rich, and I'll see you again next week.
All right, we'll talk to you all next week on our next show as we count down the days to Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll be talking spring training not too far in the future. We'll talk to you again on the next edition of MLB This Week. Take care, everyone.